Hey, welcome everyone. What a nice turnout in the new year. Maybe we're all resolving to meditate well in the new year. um, where is this going to be? Oh, I'll make this better. Anyway, um, so Aya, Himsa, and I are taking turns um, talking about the 5 hindrances and antidotes to them. And this is relying a lot on 2 of the major teachings by the Buddha from the middle length sayings, Majjhima Nikaya 19 and 20. So Majjhima Nikaya 19 is titled 2 Kinds of Thoughts. And there he talks about us dividing our thoughts into wholesome and unwholesome. So the wholesome ones are the thoughts that lead to peace and happiness. And the other one, the unwholesome ones, are the ones that agitate us and don't allow us to attain our spiritual goal of letting go of suffering. So that one's just talking about dividing your thoughts. And then the next one, Majjhima Nikaya 20, talks about how to remove those thoughts. So I have, I think, 5 different methods. So tonight we're going to talk about the first method called replacing. So we replace the unwholesome or negative thought that we have with something that's more wholesome. So first of all, we can divide our thoughts into sort of 3 categories. One, you can be sitting there with your meditation object, say it's the breath, and you're watching your breath, feeling your breath going in and out, and you're aware of it continuously, but you can sort of hear this little murmuring in the background. I know when I first started to meditate, it wasn't a murmur, it was like shouting. So that was very distracting. But then I got to a point where my thoughts were no longer sort of shouting and screaming at me, but they were just sort of like this underground murmur that I was sort of not always aware of, but sometimes aware of. Anyway, the retreat that I and I were just at with Beth Upton, she said, don't worry about that. Like, if you can be with your meditation object, then just ignore, just let it be, let the murmurings be there. You're not going to pay attention to them. You're just with your meditation object. So you don't have to do anything in that case. It's just like a little murmuring. Then the next category of thought is the one that pulls you away from your meditation object. So it's strong enough that you're no longer watching your breath or whatever, but you're off thinking something. If you're able to catch that right away and go, just sort of like realize, oh, thinking or whatever, and then just bring yourself back to your meditation object and stay with your meditation object, then that's all you have to do. You don't have to go into an antidote, one of the antidotes, the first antidote that we're going to talk about tonight. So murmurings, you just ignore. A mild sort of thought that you're able to catch right away and then just come back to your breath. That's all you have to do. So now tonight we're going to sort of focus on the third category of thoughts. And those are the ones that sort of pull us away from our meditation object. And then they can grab us for quite a long period of time and make it difficult. We could try and sort of get back to our breath or whatever our meditation object is, but they just sort of keep yanking us back. So this is the type of thought that we're sort of going to focus on tonight. Just a few more comments on the Majjhima Nikaya 19, which is the 2 kinds of thoughts, the wholesome and unwholesome. So the unwholesome thoughts can be summarized with the phrase greed, hatred, and delusion. So when we're desiring something, wanting something, when we're upset or angry or have ill will about something, or when we're just sort of confused, we don't have clarity. That's sort of a summary of unwholesome thoughts. And then if we look at the second step of the Noble Eightfold Path, the first step is right view. The second step is right intention, and it almost mirrors the opposite of those, the sort of description of unwholesome thoughts as greed, hatred, and delusion. Because the second step is renunciation, which can also be looked at as simplicity, simplifying our life, not having to have everything. Letting go, that's another word for renunciation. Metta, which is the kindness, it's the opposite of ill will. Instead of having ill will, you're wishing well. You're wishing well to others. And then the third right intention is harmlessness, or you can see that as compassion. So you can see there's quite a lot of similarity between those two, because the opposite of renunciation is greed, the desire, and the opposite of metta is ill will. So the only one that differs is the delusion. Okay. So our mind wandering, that's a habit energy. And how do habits get formed? They get formed from doing things over and over and over again. So when we're not aware, when we're not sort of in control of our mind, and we're just sort of letting it wander and wander all over the place, and it's doing that moment after moment after moment, day after day, week after week, year after year, we've got a darn strong habit energy to wander. So when we first start meditating, we've got a really huge task ahead of us of changing that habit energy. And we're going to change it the same way that we created the bad habit. We have to create the good habit over and over and over again. So the big thing is, don't feel discouraged, like when you're having to keep repeating these antidotes to our wandering mind. You know, you have to realize that you've spent a lifetime reinforcing the wandering mind. So it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time to practice over and over again. But thank goodness, from my own experience, it doesn't take quite as long to do the antidotes, because I haven't lived 2 lifetimes and things are better. So they're not perfect, they're far from perfect, but they're way better. Okay. So the first thing is we have to have awareness, because unless we're aware of our mind wandering or aware of bad habits or unwholesome things, we can't do anything about them. So mindfulness or awareness is sort of step number 1, and that's what we're practicing with our meditation practice. And what we want to become aware of is, what is the sign that we're paying attention to? So I was just thinking of a little example to show what I mean by a sign. Say you're walking down the street and a stranger's walking towards you. So if you're looking at the hairdo, that's the sign that you're looking at. If you're looking at their clothing, that's the sign you're looking at. If you're looking at their facial expression, that's the sign you're looking at. If you're looking at their gait, how they're walking, that's the sign. So the sign just means, what are you paying attention to? Because like a person walking, they have all those features. And if they start talking to you, then they've got another sign. They've got their words. So, but if they're just walking, you've got their physical appearance, their facial expression, their gait, their clothing, their hairdo, their energy field, if you're, sensitive to that kind of thing. So all of those are different signs that you could pay attention to, because that's what happens when we go through life, is we tend to zero in on a particular sign and sort of miss all the other potential signs that are out there. So I just sort of made up some examples with this person walking down the street. Um, say you pay attention to the sign of their clothing and say you don't happen to like the kind of clothing they have, then this can lead you off into all kinds of thoughts of, clothing and making assumptions about this person and, maybe developing a negative attitude. You don't even know this poor person, but you looked at their clothing and decided you don't like it. And now you've got a whole story in your head about this person. Now another person could be walking down the street and see the same streeter, and they could cue off on the sign of a twinkle in their eye. And then this could remind them of a favorite uncle who had such a nice twinkle in their eye and all your happy memories of being with his uncle. So now you've got, there's two different scenarios about this person, depending on what sign has been attended to. Another person may go down the street and see the twinkle in the eye, but maybe they had a neighbor who showed a twinkle in their eye and drew them in and then harmed them in some way, and so that twinkle in the eye had a totally different reference for them. So they've got all kinds of really negative memories about that same sign. So what we can see from these examples is a lot of our perceptions, they're not based on the reality of that poor person towards them. They're based on our past conditioning. What have been the experiences in our life? So that's what we want to watch for. What are we doing? What signs are we attending to, and what's the perception that we're creating, and is it got anything to do with reality or not? Anyway, so going back to our three kinds of thoughts here. So when we wake up to the fact that our mind is wandering from the present moment, from our meditation object, then we can either replace it with our meditation object, or if we're not meditating, we're just going about daily tasks, our job or doing things around the house or sports or whatever, then if we find our minds wandering from what we're supposed to be focusing on, we could just bring it back to what we're focusing on. Or maybe we're not having to focus. Maybe we're just out for a walk and we're just enjoying the scenery. But then you find yourself in some kind of a negative slump or something, and you catch that, you go, oh, I'm feeling kind of down in the dumps right now. Well, then you can replace it. You can look around and maybe there's some children playing and you hear them laughing. You can focus on the children laughing. Or maybe somebody, if it's springtime, has a nice display of flowers in the window box. You can focus on that. Maybe a bird singing in a tree and you can focus on that. So you can change the sign. You can attend to the sign of doom and gloom inside yourself, or you can move out and pick a different sign in the environment that's available to you to help shift your mood. So our mindfulness meditation, it's training us, helping us to notice what signs we're paying attention to and what the result is. Is it wholesome or unwholesome? Is it leading to peace and happiness? Or is it obstructing our peace and happiness? Like you can think about when you listen to the news, how do you use that information? Do you just use it to grumble to other people about or to make yourself feel depressed? Or can you listen to the news with equanimity and then choose something to do? Like if there's injustices or things that are a problem, can you just listen to that with more equanimity and then think, well, I can do this little thing, to try and, just help with the world situation. Now I was talking about, say, if you were just walking down the street and, what sign are you paying attention to? because that's a situation where we're not, quote, meditating. But teachers, including the Buddha himself, and then Thich Nhat Hanh, I heard this from him in a retreat I was at, and then just most recently, I heard it from Beth Upton, is if we really, really want to be serious about our meditation practice, we should be carrying our meditation object with us at all times. So if our meditation object is our breath, that when we get up from our meditation cushion and then go about our daily life, we should be keeping the feeling of our breathing in the background there as we're attending to our daily life. Because then this makes it so much easier when we get back to the cushion. We don't have to spend a lot of time getting settled and bringing our meditation object to bear. It's sort of been with us the whole time, so we can just very quickly, go deeply into our meditation practice. So if you choose to do that or try and do it, I'm trying to do it, but I'll tell you, it's hard. I have my little vibrating meditation thing. So I put it on my belt, and so it's on a little random vibration thing. So when it goes, I go, oh, am I with my breath? And most times it's no. But at least I come back, as my little Thich Nhat Hanh calls it, a mindfulness bell. You pick something to sort of bring you back. So that means that our breath, or whatever our meditation object is, that's always there as a choice to bring our attention back to if our mind is wandering onto unwholesome things. So in this book that I have been reading by Shaila Catherine, she said that we can look at our thought patterns and put them into some common categories. And so what I did, I'll read you out her list, but since we're talking about the hindrances, what are the things that hinder us from peace, from happiness, from the end of suffering? I tried to figure out, okay, what hindrance could be seen in this particular thought pattern. So the first one she mentions is just daydreaming. So I thought, okay, that's probably hindrance number one, which is desire or wanting, because maybe we're dreaming about how we want life to be. Or it could be the third hindrance, which is sloth and torpor. Maybe we're just dull and we're having trouble staying focused on, if we're meditating on our meditation object or daily life, stay focused on what we're doing at the moment. Second thought pattern is romantic fantasies. So I'm assuming that's hindrance number one, desire. Third thought pattern is judging, ranking, comparing. So I figured that would be hindrance number one or two, our desire to judge ourselves in good light. Or maybe it's hindrance number two, which is ill will, so judging others or maybe ourselves negatively. Fourth pattern is planning. That's certainly my go-to when my mind's wandering. I'm usually planning. And so that's hindrance number four, restlessness. We're not being content with what we're doing at the moment or with our meditation object, to run off somewhere else. Then she talked about a thinking pattern of instructing. She said this is an inner voice that sort of got a little running commentary saying, like, you should do this now, and now you should do this, and this is how you should do it. So it's probably hindrance one or two, wanting to do things a certain way, or having some ill will toward yourself about how you're doing things. Number six, she said, was evaluating your practice. So that to me is just like number three, which is judging, ranking, and comparing. Number seven, she said, was ruminating. So usually that's hindrance number two, ruminating about things you're not so happy about that happened in the past. And her final one was problem solving. So it's probably hindrance number one. You're wanting life to be a certain way. Okay. So she then went on in her book to talk about the specific antidotes replace. So remember, we're talking about the first strategy to the wandering mind, which is the strategy of replacing unwholesome thoughts with wholesome. And so she goes through the 5 hindrances and talks about examples of replacement strategies that you can use. So the first hindrance is desire. And so for that, you can use the Asubha practices, that means unbeautiful. So if we're wanting something, it's because we're seeing positive qualities in it. And so it's trying to shift your focus into seeing maybe a negative quality. And I remember my first retreat that I did with Ajahn Sona. So this was, I don't know, 28 years ago or so. But I remember this analogy he gave. He said, you go to the restaurant and the waitress comes to take your order, and she has this beautiful, just very sleek, lovely long hair, and you're just admiring the waitress's hair. And then she serves you your soup, and then there's one of her hairs in the soup. So just anyway, how we can switch something. So if you're having some desire that you figure is not good to fulfill, because first of all you don't really need it, it's excess, or it's going to put you in the poorhouse to get it, or on and on and on, whatever reasons you decide. Well, then to help your desiring mind, you can sort of think of this analogy from the hair on the head is nice, but in your suit not nice. So can you look at some negative aspect of that situation? And then another time to use the Asubha practice is if you're in a committed relationship and then you're starting to have sort of desiring feelings towards somebody else, like not your partner. Well, that's going to lead to disaster. So there you can use the 32 body parts. So instead of looking at the beautiful body of this person, you can start thinking of what's underneath the skin, all the sort of nasty things like pus and blood and poo and urine. to help you settle you down so you don't go and screw up your life and that of your partner. And then Shyla also suggested that you do a daily reflection on generosity, so instead of thinking, what can I get? Like, what can I give? So just spend a little bit of time each day thinking about generosity. And also gratitude for all the things you have, instead of focusing on this thing that you don't have that you're wanting. Focus on gratitude, spend just a few minutes each day just thinking of all the things that you have in your life and feeling gratitude for that. The second hindrance is ill will, aversion, hatred. So if you're the antidote for this is metta, loving friendliness. So just trying to send kindness in your thoughts towards that person. And maybe to help you, again, think about the sign. If you have ill will towards somebody, you're picking up on a negative sign about that person. So can you find another sign? Because rarely is somebody all bad, right? You could probably find some aspect of them that's very positive, and bring that to mind to help you. And then remember, if you're really overwhelmed with aversion or ill will, you can use the holding technique to get yourself sort of in a calm state, where then you can start changing the sign that you're looking at, or start sending metta. But you can use the holding technique to start with to get you into a better space. The third hindrance is sloth and torpor. So this is lack of energy physically and mentally. So you need to increase your energy. So one thing is open, if you're meditating, open your eyes, look at the light, um, or image a light, image a candle. Maybe bring to mind the reason you're sitting and meditating. This happens during meditation. Switch to walking meditation, a little bit more energetic. And then death reflection. You could die any moment. Better do our meditation practice now. Tomorrow may be too late, or 10 minutes from now may be too late. The fourth hindrance is restlessness and remorse. So the antidote to that is calm. So coming back to a calming meditation, like the breath. And I think if you have some experience with meditation, then I know Ajahn Viradamo and other teachers have just said, don't move. Because with restlessness, there's such a temptation to squirm around or wiggle or change or do something different. And if we're always doing that, then we never learn that we can overcome the restlessness. And so that's why the injunction of don't move. If you sit there, even though it feels like it's killing you, it's not going to kill you. And eventually you'll calm down, and then you get the lived experience of, oh, that was temporary. It didn't go on forever. I didn't have to, change what I was doing to get it to settle down. So you get a sort of a positive learning experience. But that might be really hard to do if you're kind of new to meditation. I know in my practice, I was working with people who weren't meditators, and if they were really restless, if the weather was clement, I'd take them outside and teach them running meditation, and just have them do something really physically active until they were, then they could do the walking meditation, and then they could come in and sit, and then we could do our work. But so I think that's, if you're not ready to do the thing of just sitting with the restlessness and letting it reach its end, then that's something to consider, I think, initially, until you're ready to do the don't move injunction. Okay, and then the last hindrance is doubt. And in Buddhism, doubt is referring, to the teachings of the Buddha. So one of the things you can do is like most of us, we continue with the practice because we get some immediate benefits. So if you're feeling some doubt, bring to mind the benefits that you've already received from your practice, to help allay that. But then if you're, the main thing to do, if you're just not sure, am I doing the right, is my meditation object the right one for me, or am I doing the right thing, or is this what the Buddha meant when he said this, is to come and talk to a teacher to get that, to get some advice on that. Okay, oops, mine is fine. I just wanted to share some examples from my own practice of dealing with wandering thoughts. So I know one thing that I used to have, that I had trouble with prior to my first introduction to meditation was long lineups. And there used to always seem to be long lineups at the bank and at the grocery store. And I'd be just sitting there fuming, like, I'm a busy person. I don't have time to be waiting in this lineup. Shyla mentions red lights. I never seem to have a problem with red traffic lights, but maybe some people do, sitting at a traffic light. But anyway, once I was introduced to meditation, and the other one that used to get me was being put on hold. In my practice, I was having to phone a lot of government agencies trying to get help for, support for people. and invariably you'd be put on hold. You're sitting there tapping your foot, fuming, because you never knew how long it was going to be before they came and took your call. But once I was taught meditation in each of these situations, in the lineups at the bank or the grocery store, or being stuck on hold on the phones, I would just say to myself, golden opportunity to practice meditation. And then I just go to my breath, and so much better feeling than sitting there and just having steam coming out of your ears. I mean, doesn't make the lineup go any faster. Doesn't make the person come onto the phone any faster. So that was really nice, because that, I caused a lot of suffering to myself in those situations. Oh, and I was going to show you a cute little thing that somebody taught me at one point. If I can find it. Okay. Making assumptions. So that little example I gave of the stranger coming towards you, like depending what sign you picked up, each of those persons was making sort of different assumptions about that stranger. So making assumptions, bad habit, energy. Best to speak to the person and clarify. Is this what you meant? And this is the cute thing that somebody taught me. Assuming makes an ass out of you and me. So a cute little mnemonic to help you to remember, don't do it. Don't make assumptions. Check it out. Ask the person. Oh, another thing that was really significant for me, and I got this from, I'm going to forget her name. She was one of the original IMS teachers.
Oh, yeah.
Sharon Salzberg. Okay, so I got this from Sharon's book. She said, if you walk into a dark room, a room that's dark, and you turn on the light switch, as soon as you turn on that light switch, you can see everything in the room. The light's on. So what are you going to focus on? Are you going to focus on the sign of the dark room? Like grumble, grumble, I can't see anything. Or are you going to focus on the fact that the light switch is now on and now you can see? And so this is what I would do in the beginning stages of my meditation practice. My mind would wander a lot. And sometimes it'd be gone like 5-10 minutes. You could be on for a long time wandering. And then you'd wake up, something would shift, and you'd sort of like wake up to the fact that you've been wandering. And then I'd just be bashing myself like, oh, I can't focus. And oh my God, I was wandering for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So that's like talking about the light switch being off, like walking into the dark room. Oh my God, the room's been dark for an hour or 20 years or 1,000 years. Like, it's like, oh my God, I've been wandering for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and just really focusing on the sign of the wandering. And what Sharon said is, like, the light's on now, like you woke up, celebrate that. And so I think I did this for about 2 years. Every time I'd sort of wake up to the fact that I had been wandering, I'd celebrate. I'd go, good girl, or great going, or thank you, Sati. Sati means mindfulness. Like, so I'd be thanking my mindfulness. Thank you, Sati. Or great going. Like I'd sort of give a little cheerleading. I'd actually say this in my head. I'd pause and say this little cheerleading thing in my head that because I was focusing on the sign of waking up to the fact, I was now awake. So now I could go back to my breath. And I celebrated that. And I must have done that little thing for about 2 years. And now I don't have to do it anymore because it's automatic. It's a new habit. So when I wake up from wandering, I just have this happy feeling. I'm awake. Like I'm now mindful again. And then I go back to my breath. So that was wonderful. So thank you to Sharon Solberg for that one. Oh yeah. This is probably in those 4 essays I wrote on my meeting with meditation. It's in the article section that I had written about the benefits that I got from meditation. So this was one of them, and I had just gone to a weekend sort of workshop. It wasn't really a retreat. We went home each night. It was just sort of an introduction to meditation. But I had such profound changes from that. So in the mornings, I used to work at the general hospital. That is no more. And they had a real crazy way of assigning patients. Like, I don't know, like one person got all the new patients. And I wasn't in charge, but anyway, so sometimes I'd come to work in the morning and I'd have 5 new patients on top of the 5 patients I had already. And so before my meditation training weekend, I do a lot of grumbling, like, I can't take good care of this many patients. This isn't fair. I don't like this. What am I going to do? And I just like grumble, my I'd go in and see somebody and I'd just be grumbling in the back of my mind. Anyway, I went to this little meditation introductory thing and then immediately changed my behavior. I don't know I can't remember anymore. It's a long time ago. It was over 30 years ago, this thing. But I immediately changed my behavior to accepting reality. The reality was that morning I had 5 new patients plus 5 old ones. I had 10 patients and 3 hours to deal with them. And so I would just say, okay, my 5 old patients, at least I did some psychotherapy with them. So I'll just spend 10 minutes with them, just do a real quick check-in, and maybe I'll take 2 of the new patients and give them a full hour and, get to know them and figure out a treatment plan. And then the other 3, I'll just have 20 minutes with them and just say, I'm sorry, I'll spend more time with you tomorrow, but just, find out a little bit about them. But so I stopped grumbling. I start, so that gave me much more mind space to be totally with the people instead of being half with them and half grumbling about being unhappy with the situation. I could be fully there. And then I just had so much less angst. Like, it just improved my life tremendously. So thank you to that first meditation thing. Okay. And the last thing I wanted to say, and I've used this technique a lot, if you're doing a lot of negative self-judging, like, what would your best friend say to you, about whatever you're judging yourself about? They're probably going to be a lot more gentle to you than you're being to yourself. Or what would, if your best friend had this, was dealing with whatever you're dealing with and you were having to give them advice, what would you be thinking about them? Again, probably a lot more gentle than what you're doing to yourself. Okay, sorry, I went on a bit long there. We've got a few minutes left for questions. Marilyn, do you want to hand the mic to her? Rich, is it on? Yeah.
So when you were talking about taking your meditation object with you, so also you're focusing on the person you're meeting in the job.
Yeah.
So the idea is then that you marry the 2 together so they're one, or do you have to always have this thought of your meditation object and having your present attention the other, what you're doing?
So it's not to be a thought. And I can't speak too much to this because I've been rather unsuccessful at this. I'm trying to make, but the idea is you're feeling it. So maybe you're going to go, you're going to go to the place where you feel it the gross, like it's the most obvious, like maybe your rib cage or something. So you just have that kind of in the background, and in the foreground is whatever you're doing, whatever you're doing at the moment.
But you have to have that awareness. So maybe it's not a thought, but it's an awareness.
Yeah.
So that has to be present.
Yes.
You hope that it's present all the time. And then you're fully present with whatever you're doing or you're seeing as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it does become one, doesn't it? It's not getting
Yeah.
to a point where you don't have the thought. It's like sometimes going into meditation and you're not sharing a thought or making you just in your meditation.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm expressing myself. wrong,
Yeah.
But I'm not, you didn't give me the answer that I wanted.
Well, yeah, I'm just feeling a little bit inadequate since I haven't been able to master this technique of carrying my meditation object throughout the day. I can do it for a few moments at a time, and then I lose it. But to me, when it's present, it feels like an anchor. It's kind of anchoring me in awareness. Um, but yeah, I think, why don't we save that question for a few weeks from now? Maybe if other people in the group try it out, we can have a larger group of people to poll. Do you have anything to say, Aya?
Yeah, I think that you might have the experience of them, marrying, but it it's pretty clear that the mind only knows one thing at one time. And I mean, the mind is moving so fast. I mean, so indescribably fast. Like we can't even, I mean, there's no way we can even know until we have very, very deep concentration, how fast the mind is moving and how many things are happening, which feels simultaneous, but it's not. It's really so. Yeah, I think that you can be aware of. It sounds like two things at one time, but it's not. So it's like I look up and I see many, many people, right? But I'm actually I don't. If I'm looking at Scott, you know, then these other people like are becoming the background. So I do think there's this.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and they tell, what is it, fiber optics or something? Didn't they say telephone lines? You have one fiber optic line, and it could be handling many telephone calls at a time, but it's just switching really rapidly.
that's a good one. That is how many years. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, there'd be this. We wouldn't be aware. I can feel like I'm looking at you, and I'm sensing my body at the same time, but actually, really. But it does. The experience is definitely that you're in the foreground and this is in the background.
Anyone from the Zoom room, you're going to have to wave your hand or just speak out because you're tiny.
But this idea of having your meditation object be what you're mindful of as much as possible continually. You heard it from Thich Nhat Hanh, but I had honestly never heard it and I'd never experienced it. I'd been to retreats and it was always, the meditation bell would ring and then there'd be instructions like be mindful of standing up, be mindful of walking, be mindful of opening the door and so this was new to me, this idea of being mindful of one thing. And it has a powerful effect because the mindfulness gains some strength and momentum. It's not, moving around. And Beth speaks about it, your meditation object, like you're having a relationship with it. And that eventually, I mean, you love it, and that you want to be with it. And then the distracting thoughts, it's actually the mind will want to be with the meditation object. The more that we invest and the more that we work with figuring out ways for that meditation object to be pleasant, to be attractive, to be special, to be, something that the mind is wanting to be with.
Because it feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what all of the, like over and over and over in the Sutta, it talks about that there's contentment and then that there's ease in the body. And I mean, this doesn't happen right away. This is the work that we're putting in. But then there's joy, and like it's just this virtuous spiral, it's this positive feedback loop.
Can I just, I think you might be able to hear me. I just
No,
wanna
that's
put-
the Zoom people
No?
can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's-
Have compassion for the people on Zoom.
I'm curious to hear what other meditation objects there are. So you speak about breath. What else would there be?
So there's the Buddha lists 40. So metta is a very common one. I mentioned the asubha, like the 32 parts of looking at the 32 parts of the body. There's the anusatis, which is reflection on the Buddha, reflection on the Dhamma, reflection on the Sangha, reflection on the devas, the angel. Okay, Aya, take over.
and reflection on your own generosity, and reflection on your own sila, your own ethics, your own morality. So those are 6 recollections, and they get mentioned many times.
Then there's the kasina objects, like looking at colored discs, meditation on the elements, meditation on death, meditation on the disintegration of the corpse. What else? There's 40.
There's also the kasina. So there's the colored kasinas, and then there's the element kasinas. So some people could have water or
Earth.
fire or earth, light,
Wind, or air.
yeah. So there's 10 kasinas, and there's 10 asubha, the disintegrating of the body at different stages. There's 10 of those. There's the 6 recollections. There's the 4 Brahma Viharas. Sanghamitta mentioned the first one, metta, also karuna, mudita, upeka. And there's 4 elements meditation. That's actually my meditation object. And this is where it's so important to have a teacher. This is what a teacher can really do, is help you find the best meditation object for you. And many, the majority of people, the breath works well. The breath works very, very well. For me, I've had a long history of trying breath meditation and failing so miserably. So there was quite a, defeated, and I've had a lot of energies in the body and body pain. So this was the breakthrough for me. Beth Upton helped me. She's like, you try and work with the body, you try and get some comfort, and you try and ignore those things. And if that's not working, then you have to take the body as the meditation object. And the 4 elements is one way to organize that and do that. Yeah. And I can share more about that, when we're at time. But, yeah.
Okay, any last minute quick questions before we move to our closing? Okay, so today is Happy New Year, everyone. It's the first Tuesday of the month. So we're closing with the first Brahma Vihara, metta, loving friendliness. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be loving. May you be calm. May you be safe. May no problems come to you. May no difficulties come to you. May no harm come to you. May you meet with spiritual success. May you have the patience, the courage, the strength, the determination, the inner clarity and the wisdom to meet and overcome the inevitable problems in life, to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties in life, to meet and overcome the inevitable frustrations in life, and to meet and overcome the inevitable failures in life. May the whole of our hearts be filled with loving friendliness. May every cell of our bodies be filled with loving friendliness. May every level of our consciousness be purified by loving friendliness. May we build a healthy, happy aura of loving friendliness all around us, through which no evil thought, word, or intention, or any form of harm may penetrate, but from which loving friendliness may radiate in all directions, and may we be protected. May the merit of our practice be shared with all sentient beings, named and unnamed. Blair, Lise, Agnes, Tim, Scott, may all beings be well and happy. Thank you, everyone. I can't see my cursor with these glasses.